So you want to get amazing northern light photos. How do you do it? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about how to get amazing northern light photos, what equipment to use, where to go, how to find out when they're going to be active. I'm going to give you all the information that you need. And the good news is, over the next year, possibly year and a half, is going to be absolutely amazing for taking northern light pictures. We're coming into a very active cycle for the sun, and it's going to give us great opportunities. So this video will tell you how to get the best pictures. But before we get into the video, who am I? My name is Mike Patterson, and I'm an award-winning professional photographer located here in Western Canada. I own a full-service photo studio, as well as I own a photo lab, and I print for beginners to experts, and I teach photography around the world. So I've been in photography for a little while, 39 years, so I know some of the tricks. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the tricks to get the best northern light photos. But before we get to the video, please click on the like button, click on the subscribe, click on that little bell notification, and let's get into it. So first of all, before we get into equipment, how do you know when the northern lights are going to be strong? Well, if you're on any media, you're going to hear stories after stories after stories that tonight's going to be a great night, or tomorrow night's going to be a great night for northern lights. Well, some of these people are right, but a lot of them haven't got a clue what they're talking about. The other problem that comes out with it is that even the people who know what they're talking about have a hard time determining when the lights are going to be the brightest. For example, the other day we were told around Southern Alberta it was going to be absolutely insane on the weekend. It was just going to be unbelievable on the weekend. And the weekend showed up, everybody was looking forward to taking pictures, and nothing. Why? Because the solar storm that was supposed to hit us was late arriving, and nothing happened. Nothing happened on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Nothing happened on Monday. Then Tuesday night, we had an amazing show, absolutely amazing. And then nothing the next night. And then the following night, another amazing show. So it's really hard to find out. You can take the cue from some things online, but I recommend that you go to the University of Alaska website. I'm going to put a link just down here for it. And they actually have an active running forecast that you can look at, and you can see what's happening and what the ratings are going to be and what the probability of seeing northern lights. So that's the first thing. Use them. It works great. They are the best source. Don't listen to some of these people online because they haven't got a clue what they're talking about. So go to the experts and use that website. Number 2, and this one is the depressing one. Look at your weather forecast. If it's 100% chance of clouds, even if the northern lights are at the highest level ever recorded, you're not going to see them. So once you know if there's a possibility of seeing northern lights tonight or tomorrow night or the next night, check your weather forecast, see what the clouds are like. Now, if you like to travel, hey, great, travel to see the northern lights. I know a lot of people around here that drive north so that they're closer to the northern lights, so that they're out of the clouds and stuff. You can do that. But watch the weather, because, yeah, it just does no good to have really strong possibility of northern lights and 100% chance of, well, clouds or snow. So watch that. All right, so now, where to go to take pictures? Well, best spot to go is out of the city lights. Now, if you're around certain places, you may have a dark sky preserve that you can go to. You may have a dark area that you can go to. Just around me, there's actually a couple of them that I can get to, well, relatively easily. And I could drive out there and it's going to be dark, but you don't even need to go to those. Those are great, but just get out of the city lights. Now, they're called northern lights because they happen in the northern hemisphere. But the other thing is that they always, usually 99% of the time, happen to the north. So don't go south of a city and then start looking north, because the lights of the city will light up the sky and you won't see them unless they're massively strong. So if they're just a weak or a medium northern light and you have city lights to contend with, it's just not going to work. So go north of a city, north of your light source. Go to a place that's a little bit darker. Now, I don't like just shooting northern lights. I do it. I've done it over and over again. They look amazing. They look beautiful. But I like putting something in my pictures. So I go out ahead of time. It could be a day, could be a week, could be a month, could even be a year ahead of time. And I find locations that I want to shoot sunrises, sunsets, and, yeah, you got it, northern lights. I like ponds. I like big buildings. I like trees. I like different things. The other day I went out and I scouted a location and there was a tractor parked in a farmer's field. I thought, hey, this would look good. So I did some pictures of it when the northern lights came up the next day. So look for areas that are interesting. You can shoot straight up. You honestly can. But I like something that's a little bit more interesting. Go to a canyon and shoot the canyon walls. Go to a lake and shoot the reflection on the lake. Go to a big building and shoot the building. Now understand, if there's any lights on your building, that's going to be even brighter in your pictures. So you want to have darker buildings, darker subjects to work with. All right. Now, let's get into equipment. Equipment is huge. It can be massive. It can be just overwhelming, or it can be simple. First thing I recommend, no matter what equipment you use, is I recommend a tripod. Now, whether you're using a cell phone or whether you're using a camera, I recommend a good tripod. It doesn't have to be a $20,000 fluid this and that, and it doesn't have to be the heaviest thing in the world, but a good tripod is essential for northern light pictures. Even if you're going to use your smartphone, even if you're going to use your cell phone, it's necessary. If you're going to use your cell phone, smartphone, you should try to get a mount for it to hold it. The steadier that you keep your cell phone, the steadier that you keep your camera, the longer you can take pictures, the more colors you're going to see, and the lot sharper your images will be. So I recommend something that's really good at holding a cell phone if you're going to use a cell phone, or a good tripod with a tripod mount to hold your camera. All right, the next thing, I've already alluded to it a little bit here. Do you need a camera? No, you can use a cell phone. Now, if you use a cell phone, the best pictures I have seen from the average photographer is usually shot with a Google phone or an Android operating system. Why? Because most of their cameras come with an easy to access night mode or night sight or something like that. It's worded something to that effect. And what that does is it increases the light by taking a longer exposure, and it also uses some of the computing power of the phone to give you brighter colors, richer colors to it. And it works great if you use that mode. If you just use the regular mode, it doesn't work as well. Likewise, if you're doing video with a cell phone, if you have a night mode, a light enhancing mode, anything like that, switch to that to take pictures. And again, the steadier that it is, the better the pictures will be. But what about a camera? You can use just about any camera to take pictures, whether it's a point and shoot camera, whether it's a DSLR camera, or whether it's a mirrorless camera. Again, you want to attach it to a tripod. If you're using a camera, I recommend higher ISO. I recommend 1600, 3200, even higher, depending upon the intensity of the lights. And in this area, you're going to have to practice. You're going to have to try, because every night it's going to be a little bit different. A night with really bright lights, you can use a lower ISO. A night with duller lights, you're going to have to use a higher ISO. But what about the other settings? Well, I leave my white balance to auto white balance. I've not seen a need to change that. I like to shoot in manual, and I like to have my shutter speed around the 2 seconds to the 4 second mark. Now, again, it depends on the intensity of the light, depends upon many other things, but I like that range. As far as my aperture, I usually keep my aperture at the lowest setting that lens has. Now, you don't need a special lens for it. People will tell you have to go out and buy a fast lens, and a fast lens will be better, but you don't need a fast lens. Shoot at the lowest aperture it has, the smallest number, so if it's 4.5, 3.5, 2, 1.8, whatever that number is, shoot at that and adjust your shutter speed and your ISO to be the thing that brings in more light, allows more light to compensate for that slower lens. Now, what about lenses? I like wider lenses. The wider lenses that you have, the better the pictures, because it incorporates more and you see more of the light. But you can use just about anything. But beware, if you're using a telephoto lens, everything is amplified. Stars move faster if taken pictures through a telephoto lens. So a longer shutter speed is going to show more star movement. It's still going to capture your northern lights, but you're going to see the moving stars in behind it. The wider the lens, the more it sees, the less of the star movement that you see with the same exposure. And I like to use a wider lens because you just see more. You see more of the northern lights, you see more of the foreground, and it just looks better. So what about some other settings? Well, honestly, those are your main things that you have to worry about. But one setting that you can use that can really help things is use your 2-second self-timer, if your camera has it. If not, use a 10-second self-timer so that you can set everything up, you can push the button, step away, and let the camera take the picture. Now, don't hold on to the camera while it's doing the time exposure. Don't hold on to the tripod while it's doing the time exposure. Let the camera take the picture and go from there. Now, depending upon the camera you have, you may have to experiment, but some cameras recommend that any exposure over 1 second or 2 seconds that you shut your image stabilizing off. Other cameras say don't worry about it, so check that. I like to shut mine off. I find it's better. And finally, the last point, the big point of all taking pictures of, well, anything at night, is set your focus to infinity. And you can do this a number of ways, but what I recommend you do is find a building really far in the distance and have your camera focus on it. Once it focuses on it, turn your lens to manual focus, and that will leave your camera at infinity. Now, if the lights are really bright, or if you can focus on something way in the distance, you could leave it on autofocus and you could have it do the focus. But most nights when shooting, well, astrophotography or northern lights, your camera will struggle to get a focus on anything up in the sky, unless it's the brightest of bright things. It can focus on the moon, but other stuff, well, it just doesn't focus as well. So those are some tips. I hope all that works, but I'm going to give you a couple extra little things here. Now, because we're shooting at night, because we're going out into the wilderness or we're going out into the countryside, I strongly recommend make sure your cell phone's fully charged. Number 2, take a flashlight. I know your cell phone has a flashlight on. I've heard it over and over again. But guess what? If your cell phone goes dead, so does your flashlight. So take a flashlight with you so that you have a flashlight. Let people know where you're going. And if you're nervous about going alone, take somebody with you. Find another photographer. Find a friend. If they don't have to take pictures, they can just drive with you. They can sit in the vehicle, wrap themselves up in a blanket, sip hot chocolate, and watch while you take pictures. And they get to enjoy the northern lights. So go out there, take some great pictures. Be safe while you're doing it. Enjoy it. And hey, put down below where you like to go take pictures and if you've ever taken pictures of the northern lights. I'll talk to you next time. Have yourself a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.